What is going on, everybody? Bobby Thigh and Eric Sheetsaber. We're going to be talking through this 9-game MLB slate. It's interesting. There's been a few things that I thought I would point out that from earlier that are a little different. You have some other cheap options that you might want to take advantage of, although there might be some risk, and there's a little bit more risk in that in the game in St. Louis in terms of the weather from earlier today. But I just wanted to throw out the Addison Barger is hitting 5th now for the Blue Jays. Luken Baker is minimum cost batting 3rd for St. Louis. That's a little tough because you got to worry about the weather. And Devers and who else was that? Oh, Connor Wong are not in the Boston lineup today. So those were kind of relevant to some of my things. What about you, Sheets? How you doing? And how did tennis go today, by the way?
Not so good. It was a very, very high scoring slate. But somebody that was in the Discord helping out, he looks like he's going to sweep. Not our one of the Discords. I mean, he was actually in my video as well. He got first, I think, in both of them. So that's good for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So here's a couple of issues I have, and you hit on one of them right off the bat, which I'm going to have to deal with sooner than later. Is what to do about the Padre game. Because if this game were playing, I'd be getting like a non-trivial amount of the Padres, you know, and I might end up getting some Cease too. So I really have to keep an eye on this. And at 7-10, like the 2 games before are definitely playable, you know?
Right.
So I have that's the first thing I have to keep an eye on. Second thing, the Milwaukee lineup just came. Okay, I was about to say that the Milwaukee lineup was not out yet, but I guess that is now.
Yeah, they dropped it. It's a pretty good lineup.
Let me just make sure. And Jake Bauers is in fact in. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That and clean up. So that, and then we don't have the Dodger lineup, which is basically, I guess, sort of leading into. We'll talk about pitching, I guess, in a second because I'm still trying to figure out what to do with Cease.
And that's the other thing I was saying is that also neither Baltimore nor the Dodgers are in, nor is Tampa. Now I can't imagine that Tampa could put out anything worse than they have already. So I don't think that's particularly relevant. But I mean, if you did have it in you to play Tampa against Gilbert, you'd want to probably wait to see.
Yeah, maybe if Arozarena and Adonis and all those guys were still there, maybe then we could talk about it. I don't think I can quite go there. But...
Hold on a second.
All right, do your thing. But yeah, so I'll while Sheets is gone for a second, let me talk just real quickly about the stacks. I am very heavy on the Dodgers, and I expect them to be high owned on FanDuel, but not on DraftKings. So that's going to be my main stack tonight. Will be the Dodgers along with Boston, which is weaker Boston lineup than you want, but at the same time, they're a little cheaper because of it. So I'm looking at a lot of Dodgers, a lot of Boston. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like the idea of full stacking the White Sox because there's just not a lot of pop in that lineup. However, because of the pricing, I do think they make a very, very good complementary stack. So I'm getting a lot of pieces of White Sox, and it really just has a lot to do with the pricing. I also mentioned that Barger, I'll have him as a one-off. I'm not really stacking the Blue Jays up a ton. I have no issue with anyone who wants to. I actually think it's a totally reasonable spot to do so. I just wanted to have a smaller group, and I'm not playing, as usual these days. You go through some rough parts of the season, so you kind of cut back. And as I've cut back, things have gone fairly well enough. So I'm sticking more to single entry, the 250 and that kind of stuff. And King of Smack, I'm okay with the Toronto stack. What I don't want to be, and I don't want this show to be, and I don't want this site to be, is I don't want to be the one who recommends 19 things like certain other sites do. And I actually would say certain other ones, pretty much every other site, when they talk about what they like. And I'm like, how many people are they playing? You know what I mean? I don't understand. Even if you're playing 150, you can't like 14 stacks. So for me, it really is just a matter of having to trim the field somewhere. So I happen to like Boston a little bit better than Toronto. I think both are very reasonable. I like to like the Dodgers better than pretty much everyone else in the slate. And I happen to like Colorado more than Miami. But I do have pieces in Miami. Again, more of a pricing thing, more as fillers, but no 5-mans for Miami and no 5-mans for Colorado for me. My 5-mans will come from Boston and the Dodgers. But I do think that Toronto would probably be the next team I would get to. And I also agree with Sheets that I would be getting to some San Diego if I knew that game was a full go. So I think there are certainly other ones to use. I even think there's some cheap prices on some San Francisco guys on FanDuel that I don't mind if you want to get them in the mix. Lamont Wade is 2,600, I believe, on FanDuel. I'm just double checking that one because that was another one that I sort of considered. But again, I don't want to end up with a million stacks. So I'm focusing on the Dodgers, Boston, the White Sox for the value, so I can spend up. Colorado, and I have, again, if I had to pick up the next one, I think it would be the aforementioned Toronto Blue Jays. So that's where I'm at. Until Sheets is back, I'll talk a little bit about what I want to do pitching wise today, and I do think it matters which sites and everything. On FanDuel, I'll start real quick first. I'm just going to eat the chalk a little bit with Gilbert. Again, not playing anything huge over there. If I wanted to get frisky, I do like Cease and the upside. And I actually like Schwellenbach would be my next guy before Flaherty, but I would get to Flaherty next. And if you wanted to get frisky in the lottery type of things, I think that you're going to be looking at Logan Webb as an interesting pivot on FanDuel. I actually think he's an interesting pivot on DraftKings as well. And the other one that sort of surprised me, I thought he was going to be higher owned. And you don't get necessarily that many pitches out of him. But Jeffrey Springs, that's the problem with the FanDuel is you really want that quality start in the win. And Jeffrey Springs is in a bad situation for both. So I will be using my Jeffrey Springs ownership on DraftKings. On DraftKings, Springs and Heaney are both very high on my list. I think you can spend down easily on them. And look, if you're going to play a 7K Ohtani and things like that, you're going to need to save somewhere. So I have Heaney and Springs both pretty high on my list personally. Thanks, MJ. I'll take a look at that lineup in a minute. And then after that, I'm getting to Gilbert, I'm getting to Schwellenbach, and I'm getting to Cease. His ownership is dropping because there's real weather concerns. And this would be if I'm not mistaken, I think this would be the third time in 7 or 8 starts that we've had Cease in a serious weather concern game. And I'm just interested in the upside. So I'm willing to gamble a little bit with Cease, but Gilbert is still my number one. Although in my biggest buy-in, I'm playing a sprint.
Thank you very much, Barry.
Just because it makes it a little bit easier for me. So look, we got a Dodger lineup in. MJ, thanks as always does a great job dropping in the lineup. The Dodger lineup, we got Ohtani, Betts, Hernandez, Smith. So no Freddie Freeman today, but yes, Muncy. Okay, so that was a little different than what people thought. Yeah, exactly right, King of Snack. That's what I'm trying to do here. Allowing and I don't again, this is not a slate where I'm overly worried about one pitcher going berserk. As great as the matchup is for Gilbert, yes, that's the one you worry about the most. So on DraftKings, it makes sense to me to spend down a pitcher. I don't think it makes sense on FanDuel unless you're going to maybe be bold and play Springs with only like 85 pitches or somewhere around there, and hope somehow he can get through 6 in that time. And I just think it's a little tough on FanDuel. So yeah, I was sort of going through what I like today, Sheets. But what kind of things are you seeing here? And if you want to, we can pull up a screen here, and I'll do a build if you're not.
No, go ahead. Yeah, that was Barry on the phone.
Was that? Oh, it was okay.
But no, I mean, I'm really just updating projections right now. So just so you guys know what I'm going to be doing. At like once we get off of here at like 6:30, I'm going to start what I did like a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was extremely well received. Mrs. Sheets is out tonight, and I have no life and nothing else to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a full video again, starting with the lineup construction, which I'm going to start like 6:30, 6:40, and then also like piece it together with when I'll record the late swaps I do when I do them, and then all the way up until lock of the last late swap, which I'll make it like 9:40 or something, and then I'll turn that into a video, and then at 11 we'll go live. And I'll go live at least, and look at the lobbies and see what's going on. I think it was very, very helpful for people in the past. So we're gonna do that. So I'm not really building anything right now. I'm just basically just yapping. When I will say this, in the first iteration of my Sims today, I was getting a bunch of San Francisco. What do you think that was all about?
So that was one of the teams I mentioned as a fringy team that that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
I also think on FanDuel there's some cheaper spots over there. So my guess is even if you do your normal thing, I think you might end up with some San Francisco over there as well. And thanks for the kind words, Squatch Happens. Really appreciate that. But yeah, so I went through what I was doing, which is basically Dodgers, Colorado, Boston as my main teams. And I am playing a good bit of as fillers in like my 3-man stacks of like the White Sox, just because they're so cheap.
So Freddie Freeman is out, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm going to have to change some of my hand builds because I specifically wanted to play Freeman. Now I'm going to specifically want to play Muncy because those are going to be the 2 low-owned guys. Those were going to be the 2 low-owned guys from the Dodgers. And now I think that Muncy is going to get like no ownership, so I'll take a gamble there.
Are people really going to play Ohtani at 7K?
So I don't think they're going to play a ton of them. It's one of the rare nights where you see Ohtani is not the highest owned Dodger hitter, even I believe. Yeah, Tommy Edman is. But I think he'll probably be somewhere around, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10%. Is just a guess, just because that seems to make sense with what the projections are saying. And I don't think people naturally want to play a lefty who's 7K. Just not usually the right thing to do.
Right.
But but because of that, that makes it very easy. As if you're anytime you can use Ohtani as a way of getting different, it feels pretty good. The guy's the highest scoring fantasy player in the world. So I'm always going to try and get him when he's low owned. I'm actually always going to try and get him anyways. Definitely my most owned hitter on the season. But yeah, like playing 7K for a hitter makes your lineups weird. But the Dodgers do have, a 2,900 Kike Hernandez and a 2,800 Chris Taylor to sort of balance it out. So maybe in some higher buy-ins, he gets a little bit more ownership than he's currently being projected.
The other thing is I was also getting just like a lot of freaking Logan Webb in the first run of these things. Why is he that much better than all the other ones?
I don't think Logan Webb is that much better than any of the other ones. And for some reason, I honestly don't know. I like Logan Webb a ton as a real life pitcher. It feels like the wrong thing to do to spend up. So to me, like playing Logan Webb, why would I do that when he's not as expensive as Springs, who has a higher strikeout expected rate than he does, and Heaney, who we know has the upside. So I just went with that as those guys is much cheaper. So I personally did not get to the Webb myself. Would it be surprising if he went out and threw a gem? No, it never is. He's really good. And I think he deserves, I think he deserves consideration, but I'm not. And we've seen this a lot. Milwaukee's offense is, I think, a lot better than people think, They strike out enough to where you can play guys against them, but I don't like Webb as much as the other guys. Maybe it's popping up for you because it's a good differentiator.
I don't know, because I hope I'm not. It doesn't sound like something. Listen, it didn't sound like a team. San Francisco didn't sound like a team I really wanted to stack, and Logan Webb seemed like an okay SB2. I wouldn't put him ahead of necessarily ahead of like 4 or 5 other guys. That's my issue. Now you mentioned with Springs that there's like a pitch count issue. Or is that just a normal thing with him?
He just doesn't throw that many pitches in general.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he's limited on purpose. He's just always not as high of an upside as the other guys. Okay.
Yeah, they were using him as a long relief, like the long guy for a while. Now he's sort of but he's still only throwing like 85 to 90 pitches. But I still think at 7,500, that's very reasonable in this night.
Well, let's get back to the original question here. So what are you going to do with the Padre game?
So I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Cease. I'm not playing that many lineups, so
okay.
I think just sort of taking my shot with him in one of my medium-sized buy-in stuff is probably the most logical answer. But I am a little, I don't know, it's a little bit of a tough one for me, to be honest with you. So I'm struggling with that myself because I do really like him as the high upside guy that's getting a little lower ownership than I believe he should. And also the perception now is his ownership looks like it's even dropping more with every update that happens because it seems like people are concerned about the weather for good reason.
Yeah, and I'm also concerned about the Padres as a stack. You know what I mean? Because again, I probably get a decent amount of them if they played. So I got to decide, right?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I agree with you. The Padres are interesting. So I don't know. I don't know where to go. I think that there's no question there's risk. I don't think doesn't seem like there's really any way that we're going to know absolutely for sure anything. That's my take, and I know that's not very helpful, but because of it, I'm mostly just not focusing on it. If I was max entering today, maybe I would only have Padres in stacks or something like that, and only play C's with the Padres or something like that. But the way I'm doing it currently, I'm just not I'm probably going to end up not getting to that much C's outside of one or two lineups, and I'm probably not going to end up getting too much Padres.
Talk through a little of that, because you mentioned it a decent amount of the time. The idea that if you were going to play them, it would only be in stacks.
So because if you're going to play the Padres, it's just to me it's too big of a risk take for one-offs and things like that. I just don't think it's worth it. So the only way I would try and do it is if I like put it in where if I had to have at least 3 other Padres if I wanted to play C's or the Padres, and I probably would just end up with them together and just gamble on the game that way, because I do think it's a good spot for the Padres, and I think it's a better spot than it's getting credit for C's.
But let me push back again. So what do you mean by why is there more risk for one-offs than for stacks?
Well, because if you're one-offing, because if you're gonna gamble for it, you just go all the way with it.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's what I meant. You just lose it, or you have it. You're in the game and at very low ownership. So I just would rather, I'd like to go together. Also, we've talked about it historically a little bit more than we have recently, but you'll notice it with some of the scripting that it does. You'll see a lot of your pitchers in your stack lineups, and because it is a benefit. You get up 6-0. It's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to go out there and pitch well. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about the guy walking 5 guys in the next inning or something like that. They're not trying to pitch around everybody, and it usually works out better for the pitcher when you have an offense that you like.
Yeah. Are you playing? Before I get to that, I was thinking about one of the guys I mentioned earlier is kind of like a weird pivot, being Sean Manaea. This is a little bit crazy, but his strikeout prop is like so low.
Yeah.
I don't even understand that. I guess the Arizona is that good, I don't know.
They're good against lefties. I believe, let me just double check that I'm right on this, that their strikeout rate is as low as I think it is. I think it's very low. And yeah, they strike out actually a little higher than it's a little higher than I thought it was. It's a little confusing. They've actually had a lot of at-bats. So I'm trying to work out the percentages here. They strike out a low percentage against lefties. It's just I think they face lefties. Yeah, it looks like they face lefties more than anybody else in baseball by quite a bit. So that's why the overall numbers were a little tricky to figure out. So you're talking about a 322 out of 1430. So you're looking at like a 20-ish% strikeout rate, which is pretty low for modern baseball. And yeah, I think that's what's happening.
I kind of but the fact that Freeman is out. I think I'm going to end up getting more of the Dodgers actually as a result of that.
You're going to end up getting more because they're a little cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like when I run stuff like right now, I'm gonna have to do it all over again. But when I'm getting on DraftKings, I guess people can guess, but it's right now it's basically it's Texas and the Dodgers are my top 2, followed by Miami and Toronto. So nothing particularly earth shattering. But I don't know. I just have this. I'm talking myself to this idea that the Dodgers are not going to be high owned. So I don't know why I'm talking myself into that, but I'm trying to talk myself into that.
So I was doing the same thing. And so I think the guys that will get ownership, I think Will Smith at his price is going to get some ownership. I think Teoscar will get ownership. I think Mookie will get ownership. I think Tommy Edman is the one who'll get the most, as you can see from this thing. But I do think that like Ohtani, and it's still updating for the Muncy thing. I don't think anyone's going to play Muncy. And I don't think anyone's going to play Ohtani, or not anyway. I don't think that many people are going to be able to play Ohtani. So those would be the guys to get a little bit different with, in my opinion. I think you asked for Rojas in the mix, although I don't think Rojas will be as low owned as he's projected. That's just my take.
Now, just so you guys know, the way I usually handle stuff like a Padre game, I usually just exit out when it's orange. It's just the risk of getting 0 is just too high. And the argument against that, of course, is if it's dangerous, then it's going to be low owned, right? Or low, or at least lower owned than it would have been otherwise. And yeah, I get that, but 0 is really small. You know what I mean? Like 0 is a very low number, and it's not like well, if he plays in the NBA, I don't know whether he's going to play 28 minutes or 32 minutes.
Right.
You know, if I'm wrong about that, maybe he only plays 28. This is like, if you're wrong about this, I mean, the lineups are literally no chance.
Right.
You know, so I usually just X them out. I don't know if that's what I'm going to do this on this occasion, but that's what I usually do.
If there wasn't all these 640 games and we had 14 games like we usually do on Tuesdays, I would say that probably is the right thing to do because there's so many other options. But I don't think there's like a clear top stack. And you also have Cease as one of the highest upside pitchers and a very low owned, looking at it right now, very low owned Padres stack in a good spot in 97-degree weather, even with the rain somehow still that hot. I don't know what I would do if I were you. If I was scripting, I think I would like to try to get to 10% Padre stacks and then make it a rule where I would never play a Padre as a one-off. I'd only have to have it as a 4-man or more, or maybe a 3-man or more.
That's a tough rule to write.
It is. There is a way to do it. I don't remember how, but I've done it before and I just don't remember how I did it.
Yeah.
In a similar type of situation on a smaller slate. But I'm going to run, and I'm just curious to see what SaberSim is going to give out there. So I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to add a contest. I'm going to just do the why is this not working? Come on, scroll down. There we go. I'll do the lottery and just sort of see what they come up with for today, and go from there. I'm just kind of curious because I ran one earlier, but then I deleted it. All right, let's do the batters rally cap. All right, save settings, and then let's change two things. Let's do it for a hitter, not a pitcher. I've learned my lesson. It's always better to change it just by doing a pitcher. I mean, to do a hitter than a pitcher. 8. And we will make this. We'll make another one. Let's just do this one at 8. Okay. Here we go. So let's see what they come up with for out of 100 lineups. I'm really starting to enjoy it, by the way. I've watched some of your videos and that's helped, but I really actually like it. Whether or not I'm actually going to script or use it that day, it's been a really good tool. I'm really excited about it for NFL season.
I mean, information is good, you know?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's all it is, information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, if it was up to me, there would be none of this information would exist. I would hope that there'd be none of it. Before everybody knew how to do all this stuff, it was so easy to win, actually.
Yeah, now you're on Brick's team. Like Brick is like really he's like really paranoid. He's like these freaking sims are going to get faster, they're going to get cheaper, and it's going to get harder. And he's right, but you know he's a smart dude. He'll figure it out. He's lasted.
Hey,
he was doing it. He was doing it before there was optimizers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like.
There are still plenty of guys who make a fortune at playing poker who played 20 years ago, and the guys who don't use solvers because they basically understand it. Now, most of the top young guys now do use solvers, but not everybody does. Anyway, all right. So let's see what
just so you guys know, also tomorrow is the King of the Baseline thing for the tennis. It's round 1 of the finals of that. So I'm playing I got my 3 entries.
Oh, sweet.
So I'm playing that. I think I have to really look at the rules. I think they cut it 50%. I think I have to double check.
Oh, nice.
And
so
then
you go with a very cashy type of strategy, I'm guessing. Like
I'm just going to play my top projected lineups. I mean,
yeah.
But the real here's an interesting question. I was going to save this for the video tomorrow when I do this is so if I have 3 entries and it's let's say it's 50% advance. Do I how different do I get in those 3 lineups? Do I do the same lineup 3 times? Do I do min unique 1? Or does you know what I mean? I don't know exactly what to do.
I probably would have similar. I don't know. It's a little. I don't know the tennis as well. I wish I knew it a little bit better. But when I've had similar type situations where we used to have that type of stuff, I would tend to make just slightly varying decisions.
Yeah, but not that varying. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but just very slightly. Right.
I'd like to get 2 through. You know what I mean? I like to.
Right. It'd be great to get 2 through.
And I could go like min unique 6 or whatever, and give me a better chance overall to get 1 through. But then I have no chance to get 2 through.
Yeah. I got you. All right. So just for what it's worth here, guys, I'm sharing it with what SaberSim sort of came up with. They are going just heavy. They're all over the Gilbert as sort of. I'm not too surprised to see. But they really spread out after that. I mean, it's pretty wild, actually, that there's nobody else above 22%. And this is out of 100 lineups. You know, let's look at the pool size. Yeah, so only 41% of the pool, but for this content, that's interesting though. I would have thought it would be a little bit less Gilbert just because the lottery and everything. So let's see what they came up with for team stacks. 43% Texas. Texas is an interesting one that we talked about. You mentioned it earlier that it's kind of like I think it's sneakier than I think it was sneaky until I've heard it on every other show today.
I guess so, huh?
But I still think it's going to be sneaky enough, you know. So they're high on the Texas, and look in second, San Francisco, right there. I get it. And the White Sox, but I bet you some of those White Sox are 3-mans, not as many 5s. I'm not sure though. Yeah, see the White Sox, they only have a little bit of the 3-mans, and they have it's only 1 4-man. All right, so yeah, they have them mostly as the 3-man stacks, which is the way I think you should be deploying teams like the White Sox and this type of stuff. Texas and San Francisco as the most popular 5-man, and they still have a bunch of, or 8% of the San Diego 5-mans.
San Francisco, which of the guys on that team do you reckon have pinch hit risk?
So theoretic, like a lot of them actually do. Well, Lamont Wade does. It's not a guaranteed pinch hit, but it's certainly possible. Let me just grab their lineup again real quick, because I think I would say Wade. It's interesting though, because it's like there's a couple righties surrounding him, so maybe it won't be as much. Let me just grab their team players. Okay. San Francisco batters. Wade, McRae. I don't think they usually let Yastrzemski and Conforto hit against lefties, so it would take a certain type of situation. But those would be the 4 that you consider.
Yeah.
But I'm not like overly worried about Wade. I guess could be one, but if the stack's going well, I don't think up 6-0 in the 4th or something that's when it would happen. Doesn't feel like that's the kind of way. Maybe if it was 6-6 though, it might happen. But yeah.
Well, let me see. Right now, how much San Diego do I have? Right now, I'm having. You know what I have San Diego as far as stacks go? I have 7%. So maybe that's just fine.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough to where you probably feel okay with it, as long as you don't have like the Machado 1-off in 25% or something like that.
I have. Well, it's well. The good news is of those, like I have total amount of stacks of the Padres are 11, and out of the 150, and of that 8 are 5-man. So that's good, right? That's what you were saying, right?
Exactly.
That make the 5-mans. Yeah, okay. That's good enough. And you don't want, like you said, Machado as a one-off. Okay,
right. And Rody's in there asking about the Coors game, and I agree. It's great hitting weather. It's just a question of how bad are these teams. So like, I am playing plenty of Rockies. I'm not playing quite as many Marlins because they're going to be more popular on DraftKings. But I also bet the under. I had my buddy bet 100 on the under for me. And,
I'm which on the under and what?
In the Colorado.
What is it, 9.5 or something?
11.
Oh my God.
And he got it at 11.5. So.
Oh my goodness.
That was like laying
11.5
minus 110. Yeah, it's a lot of runs for these teams to score. You watched last night, like we
so many runs for these teams to score, dude. And I got a hankering to play the Minaya over 4.5. I mean, what?
Yeah, I understand it. I think but Minaya may have done what happens to me sometimes, and that could be good and it could not be. But he is a little too good of a strikeout pitcher for that to be the number. But I know once you see a guy when they're rolling, it's hard to like think, oh, this guy's not going to.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
But I do think that look, he struck out 9 or more guys 3 out of his last 5 starts. Like Dude,
I'll tell you this. Part of me really wants like me to get off to like kind of a shaky start, so I could swap like all my Gilbert to Minaya.
Yeah, exactly. I like it.
Or certainly all my Springs to Minaya.
Yeah, I've had that happen so many times with basketball when I'm like, I kind of hope it's a little bit of a slow start for these guys so I can definitely make this insane pivot over this 3K guy who we know is going to play 30 minutes and this other guy who may not play 10.
So here's another bit of a kind of like just like managing your life advice here, your DFS life. So if you're going to do late swap, which you should, okay, I'm not saying always do, but you should. There's a weird. Okay, so there's a gap. There's an easy gap between 840 and 940 where you can wait, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that Colorado game is by itself at 840, like a half hour after Milwaukee starts. I think that because you're showing your transactions.
Oh, sorry about
Is because the Colorado game's gonna be so popular. And it's such a kind of a weird, in a way, a key to the slate that I would try to make the time between the San Francisco game and the Miami game to run a late swap, just to see, what if you need to do something different in the Miami Colorado game. Like maybe you'll need to get off a little of that and go to, like you were talking about the Mets and the Arizona maybe being good pivots, and that might be something you could do, or if you really need to, go for the throat play. You don't necessarily have to go play Tampa, but it's a pretty good contrarian stack again. Is go right back to Seattle again. Spring's getting a little bit of ownership, and Seattle can hit the ball sometimes.
We like the Yankees in general.
Or, if you want to get super contrarian, whatever. It's not the greatest play in the world, but again, Baltimore can hit. So. Yeah. But again, the point is that there is that kind of Miami Colorado slot that you should keep an eye on. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, man. Do you want us to get out of here so you can do your thing?
Yeah, we're getting out of here, and I'm gonna record. I'm not gonna go live. I'm just gonna record all that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be live at 11.
Yeah. You are gonna be live. Okay. Well, I'll probably join you and just say hello.
Yeah, I will be live at 11 for sure.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to remind everybody really quickly that we are going just right now, the promo code at NFL24, 24% off first month and 10% off of the yearlies. It's a pretty incredible. I'm telling you, I looked at all the packages on all the other sites. You're going to get a great deal if you take this NFL for the yearly package.